The following episode contains sensitive topic information that may not be appropriate for young listeners, as well as religious or other views that may not reflect those of the Sirens team.
Hello again. We are back with Sirens of the Supernatural. Rhonda, Ryan, and Lindsay, and we are glad to be back. It is, what episode is this of season 2?
17? 16 or
17.
17?
Wow, that's exciting. Exciting. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Doing great. Hopefully you guys had a great week. Like I said, look forward to showing up here tonight. Another great episode in store for our listeners
Yes.
and our viewers out there. I think they'll be really excited about this.
Yes. And go ahead, Lindsay.
I just think this one's cool. I'm excited to talk about this. I mean, I'm always excited, but
Yeah.
I think this one's going to be really cool.
We think that about every episode.
Every episode.
But I have to tell you, I have to give a shout out for these Sunday Scaries because this story is like the wildest.
It's crazy.
I'm like, every time I think that it cannot get crazier, it gets crazier.
It gets crazier. And I say it every week, but like, it's been so long since I read through the whole thing. So, and I don't read ahead because I want to be surprised too. So I'm like, there's still 6 more chapters to go. And I'm like, what is going to happen? I don't remember from when I read it the first time. It's really crazy.
And I've never heard it, so I'm hearing it for the first time. So, yeah, listeners, if you're not tuned into Sunday Scaries, it's a really good series. I'm just like trying to guess how the next chapter will go, and I'm so far off every time.
Well, and I feel kind of bad because I feel like the past 2 Sunday Scaries haven't really been on Sunday, but that's only because this past weekend when I was editing and adding all the sound effects and everything, I edited all day on Friday, and my software crashed that I was using, and so I lost everything. And so I had to start all over again on Saturday morning, and I edited all day on Saturday and finally uploaded it at literally like 11:58. So it was technically on Sunday, but nobody's going to be awake.
And that's what we do for you listeners.
So I was like, oh my God, I was so mad at the software that I was using, but got it done, and it's fine.
You stuck with it. That was time consuming, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because the sound effects are
really
awesome.
Long. Like those 2 chapters were really long.
Yeah. And it did seem like it was wrapping up, and then what?
It seems like the end, but it's not the end.
And it's a cliffhanger too.
Yeah.
So anyway, before we dive into our topic tonight, which is haunted and cursed toys and objects, I had put out on our socials, a little something that said, would you buy a cursed object or a haunted object or toy? And so most of what we got were no's. No. People are like, no, I don't think I would do that. I guess if I knew that it was or supposed to be haunted, I don't know. I'd be curious, but then I wouldn't want to buy it either. I don't know. What about you guys?
Well, they have like on eBay and Craigslist.
Yes.
You can get on there and you can buy your own haunted doll or like object, and people do. They get on there specifically for that stuff. But I think it's kind of like against the rules, so I don't think it's technically like 100%. Oh, this doll's haunted.
Yeah.
But it's kind of in the description, like what you're gonna get. And I've seen like YouTube videos by. There's this one that I like to watch. Her name's Loie Lane, and she does a lot of like scary videos and gameplays and stuff.
Yeah.
And I know she's bought a couple, and I'm not that brave. This house is not haunted, and I think I would like for it to stay that way.
Stay that way.
I think. Anyways.
I would be like, okay, is it going to be really haunted, or is it just somebody wanting to make a quick buck, or, what's going on? Because you never really know what you're getting. And then, like you mentioned, most people, if you pay attention, besides certain items, most things that are like beautiful or attractive or shiny or stand out, those are your most haunted ones because they want to draw that attention. They want to draw that type of activity. So, I'm just like, you're not going to buy something that just looks a little raggedy and something. It just says haunted box on it. You're like, whatever.
Yeah.
That's a pass.
Yeah.
I
Well,
feel like
tonight, go
if I
ahead.
were to buy a haunted object, like it would have to look really cool, or I don't know, like if it's just like something old and raggedy, I'm gonna pass. Like I don't, because my aesthetic in my house is very like, I have a lot of skulls, I have a lot of really witchy stuff. So I feel like if I saw a really cool Ouija board, I might be tempted. But also, if I'm gonna put a Ouija board up in my house just for decoration, I would want it to not have been used before, because I
Yeah.
don't want to take my chances,
Yeah.
But if there was like a pink like Barbie Ouija board, I would be tempted. I won't lie. I would be like, you know what? I might have to get
The planchette will be the Barbie Jeep with a little
that.
glass in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's,
Well, we'll be talking a lot about haunted toys, haunted objects, cursed objects. We've got a little bit of everything to throw in there in the pot for this episode. So I am curious to hear what you guys talk about. If you're ready, Lindsay, I think you're going to start us out tonight. So take it away.
Okay, and we do have a slideshow of images for all of our stuff. So if you're
Yes.
just listening, you maybe jump over to YouTube so you can actually see pictures. Because my first one that I'm doing is the Hope Diamond.
Ooh, yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
we all like looking at shiny things, okay? But the first thing that I want to actually read to you guys is kind of a timeline of the curse of the Hope Diamond. So this is just from like a newspaper article way, way back in the day that kind of describes each owner of the Hope Diamond and what has happened to them.
Oh.
And then I'm going to go over a real timeline of the Hope Diamond, and then I'm going to let you guys decide for yourself. Like, do you think it's cursed? Do you think it's not? Is everything a coincidence? We'll get there.
Okay.
And sorry, I have the sniffles. I got some allergies going on, so just ignore me. Okay, so the first one says Jean-Baptiste Tavernier was the guy that found it, and he was torn to pieces by wild dogs.
Wait, what do you mean found it?
He was the first owner. He was the one that uncovered it in India, which we'll go into that more in a second.
Had it been made into a jewel yet, or we don't know?
Well, I'll show you a picture because it's gone from the Hope Diamond we have now is not the original, what it looked like. It's been cut down a lot. But there are drawings of how it first looked, and there are like kind of AI images of what it looked like back in the day.
Oh, cool.
So he was the first guy. He was torn to pieces by wild dogs. And then you have Madame de Montespan, and she was deserted by the king and ruined. Then you have Nicolas Fouquet. He was executed by royal command. Queen Marie Antoinette, beheaded. Princess de Lamballe was torn to bits by a French mob. Louis XIV was beheaded under the guillotine. Wilhelm Foss was ruined financially. Hendrik Foss, his son, committed suicide in London, 1830. Francis Bielio, I'm sorry if I said that wrong. It's French and I'm obviously not French. He died in misery and want. Now Lord Hope, the Hope Diamond, that's what it's named after. The first one, he had misfortunes and ended with the death of his favorite son. Lord Francis Hope II, so it was his son, he had financial trouble, scandal, and unhappy marriage. Mayo, his wife, was ruined and unhappy. Simon Frankel, financial reverses. I don't really know what reverses means. I think it was just like ruined financially.
Yeah, like he had a lot of money and then yeah.
Jacques Collot, insanity and suicide. Prince Ivan Kanitovsky, slain by revolutionists. Laurence Ledoux, killed by her lover. Simone Montherites thrown away over a precipice and killed. Abu Sabir tortured and imprisoned. Kalub Bey hanged in the street by a Turkish mob. Keeper of its vault was strangled. Zubayba killed by her master Abdul Hamid. Abdul Hamid was dethroned. Jabir Agad tried to steal it and was hanged. Salim Habib drowned off of Singapore. And Mrs. Edward B. McLean, who bought it in 1911, her only son was killed by automobile.
Oh
I
my
probably
God.
butchered a lot of those names, but I do think I have to say, and I don't know if you can hear it or not, literally after every single one of those, Champ like growled so quietly.
I
After
didn't
I
hear
said
it.
every single one of those, he's dreaming behind me, but
Yeah.
the timing could not have been more perfect. After
Maybe.
every single one, he's like growling in his sleep. So
So
yeah,
this, wait, this is the same Hope Diamond that we saw in
at the
Washington, D.C.
Smithsonian.
at
Yeah.
the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
And all these people had something to do with it. And once
Owned
they,
it.
yeah, okay. Wow.
But now, and I'll go through the real timeline of it, because some of them, yes, some of these things happened to them during their time owning it. Some of them happened after they had owned it. Some of them aren't even true.
Oh,
So, yeah, because rumors fly, and people like to make it a bit more interesting. If it's a cursed object, they really got to play it up.
yes. Okay.
Okay.
So this newspaper article, it says the Hope Diamond of disaster.
You really gotta
Yeah.
sell it. I mean, you gotta sell the paper.
I guess they sure did.
So this is what it looks like now. This is how it's set in the
So
Smithsonian Museum, which, like Mom said, is in DC, because we had taken a trip it's been years, but years back we took a trip, and I'm pretty sure I have almost this exact same picture that I took
Yeah.
of it. It's just in the middle of a room, and I mean, it's a very big diamond, but
It's in a glass case, and the little
and it's
stand that
swinging
it's
around,
on
so
goes up, and then they can take it down into the bottom of the case. But it is gorgeous. I mean, the
it's
picture
beautiful.
doesn't do it justice.
How big
No.
is it actually? From the picture, it doesn't look that big. I mean, how big is it?
It's probably about
This one now.
this
Hold on,
big.
I've got it written down how many carats it is. This one is like 45 carats though. But we'll go through all the carats and everything that it was, or the weight of the diamond.
Wow.
Why would they cut it down to get it more pure or something? Or because wouldn't it be more valuable?
You would think so. I think the second time that it was cut down was to make it more available to be set in jewelry.
Oh.
And then the third time that it was cut down to the Hope Diamond, I'm pretty sure it was just so that it wasn't recognizable as what it used to be, because it was stolen through the years. And so it was cut down so it wouldn't be recognized as what it was.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So in the Smithsonian, like, it's beautiful. It's this beautiful diamond, but you would never know just by looking at it the history that it's had and how it's supposed to be, right? So we'll start in 1668. So Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, who was ripped apart by wild dogs, he was the explorer that found it. Now, there are two stories of how he's found it. The first, which I think is the true story, that he found it most likely in the Kolar mine of the Golconda region in India. Oh. Now, this was a mine that was famous for producing all kinds of really valuable, colorful diamonds. The second version of how he found it is the more fantastical, crazy origin story, that he found it in this temple in India, and it was being used as an eye for the statue of this goddess, and he stole it, and that's where the curse began.
So what's the truth?
That one I do not think is the truth. I think that was made up down the line to sell it to a particular person, because this person And it's kind of funny that you said, like, would you want to buy a cursed object? This person wanted to buy cursed objects and thought that they were lucky for her. So I think this origin story was made up to kind of sell her on, hey, you should buy this from me, you know.
Or maybe they cursed it for him.
Maybe. Who knows?
But so oh, you want a cursed object? Give me a minute.
Yeah, just give me a minute and I'll find you one. Yeah, so in his like travel journals that he wrote, Tavernier, he doesn't specify where exactly he finds it or uncovers it. It's speculated that it was found in this mine because this mine was famous for producing these colorful diamonds and gemstones, but he never really disclosed that information, I think, to kind of keep his sources close to his chest so that, you know, nobody's going to go, like, there's no middleman. He's finding it, he's selling it. He doesn't want anybody else to go find his resources and kind of get in on the money, you know?
Right.
So he finds it, he sells it to Louis XIV, the Sun King, in 1669. So from 1669 to 1672, Louis XIV orders it to be recut to a 69 karat heart-shaped French blue. So to start out with, it was the Tavernier diamond.
Okay.
Now we're cutting it down. So now it's the French blue.
Okay. That's what they called it. Okay.
That's what it was known as.
Okay.
Now, contrary to popular belief, it wasn't really worn in the French royals didn't really wear it. It was more of a symbol of power. They had it set into a setting kind of like this, except for it was set into gold and mounted kind of on a stick or like a scepter kind of situation, so that when you looked into it, instead of it being blue in the center, you would kind of see this golden star. So it really, the two colors for French royalty were like gold and this really nice deep royal blue. So it really was a symbol of that royalty and that wealth. Okay. Now, he didn't really wear it. I don't know if he ever really wore it, but he kind of kept it more in a cabinet of curiosities to show guests, to show it off when he would have special guests come over. So then in 1749, Louis XV, which was his grandson, used it more as an emblem for the knighthood of the Order of the Golden Fleece. So this was more of just kind of, I guess, a status of royalty of this specific knighthood. It wasn't really worn. It was used more as a symbol of power, but it was put into a different emblem. It was almost like a little logo for this knighthood.
Yeah.
And there were lots of other gemstones and stuff set with it, so it wasn't just on this golden scepter anymore. It just transferred it to a different emblem, right? So then we fast forward to 1791, and this was the French Revolution, right? It's unlikely to have ever been worn by Marie Antoinette, but when Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were fleeing France and they were captured, they had a lot of the French royal crown jewels with them, and because it was on that emblem of this knighthood and it was a symbol of their wealth, obviously they had it with them. But they were all returned to Paris. The French crown jewels were put into this, kind of stored in this royal warehouse, but it wasn't guarded very well because in September of that year, over a few days, this group of people were kind of breaking in and out of the warehouse and stealing different things. And as we know, Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were both beheaded. So you know that list at the very beginning that I was reading to you. People think that she wore it a lot. Apparently, I don't think she ever really did wear it, but she was still beheaded and it was in her possession when she was trying to flee. So it's cursed, you know?
Yeah.
But so in 1792, the theft of the crown jewels from the storehouse happened, and the French blue diamond from the website that I got all my information from the Smithsonian website. It kind of takes you through the history of it. And on the website, it says the French blue diamond has not been seen since. So, in 1812, now we're fast forwarding a while down the road.
Okay.
Now, 2 days after the statute of limitations for crimes committed during the French Revolution had passed, 2 days after this statute of limitation had passed, John Francilian describes a large blue diamond brought to him in London. It was 45 carats. Now that's where we have this. This is the Hope diamond.
Okay.
So I think this is the third time it's been cut down to 45 carats. Now we've gone from 112 carats
Whew.
to 69 carats of the French blue to now the Hope diamond. It doesn't have the name the Hope diamond yet, but the Hope diamond is now 45 carats.
Uh-huh.
And it was owned by a Daniel Elason. He was a diamond merchant. So I guess after this statute of limitations lifted, he kind of took it to this other guy to be weighed and kind of cataloged. And James Sowerby was one of the ones that cataloged this in, and I don't remember what his book was called, but it was kind of like an exotic gemstones of the world kind of deal. His book was.
Uh-huh.
And so he describes the French blue as a sky blue diamond among the crown jewels of France, weighing around 67 carats. In the next sentence of his book, he describes this blue diamond that was owned by Daniel Elason, but he makes no connection between the two. It takes like 40 some years for there to be any connection between these two diamonds. The whole time, I guess people were thinking that the French blue was just lost to time.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, it had been cut down to be disguised.
Gotcha.
So that people wouldn't suspect them of stealing it or recognize it as that and want to persecute whoever had it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he then describes this diamond as a deep sapphire, but gemologists and scientists now believe and know that this Hope diamond, the one that he's talking about now, the 45 carat one, was cut from the French blue.
Okay.
But to me, it struck me odd because he's describing the French blue as a sky blue diamond.
Mm-hmm.
But this diamond is a deep sapphire blue.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm not a gemologist. Obviously, I'm not a scientist. So I guess maybe a bigger diamond that has lots of different light reflections in it could appear lighter when you cut it down. The smaller it gets, the deeper in color it appears. I don't know. I did think that was a little suspicious, though. Like, in my brain, I'm like, are these the same diamonds? But people have proven that they are. So, in 1839, the diamond is named after its owner, Philip Hope. Now, it does change hands a lot from the time that James Sowerby wrote this article to going to Philip Hope. But I want to save time. I don't want to go through every single owner because it can get very redundant and whatever. So, in 1851, it's exhibited on display at the Great London Exhibition. In 1852, it's connected to the French blue diamond finally. So, from 1812 to 1852, people were thinking that these were two different diamonds. It's finally made the connection of this diamond, right? So, here on the screen, I have, so that first drawing, the one on the bottom, is the drawing of the Tavernier blue, the very first 112 carat diamond, what it was in the very, very beginning. The top left is the French blue, and then the top right is the Hope diamond. So they can do these scans and these comparisons on it because they have original, really accurate drawings of the first diamond at the time.
Gotcha.
So you can kind of see, and the drawing on the bottom has 3 drawings. There's like a side, there's a top, and there's the bottom. So you can kind of see from the bottom drawing how you could get that French blue cut from this original diamond. And then to me, it's easy to look at the Hope diamond and see, okay, that could definitely fit in the French blue. Like you could get that from cutting it down.
And it's easy to see in that top left picture, you see a lot of light blue, like sky blue, and you don't see as much as it's cut down.
As it's cut down, it gets darker because there's not as many reflections, I guess. So, in 1887, it was left to the grandson of Francis Hope because Philip Hope, he passes away. His wife doesn't want to leave their gems and their expensive jewelry to their son because he kind of has some gambling debts and problems. He's not very smart with money. So instead of leaving it to the son, they leave it to the grandson. So it's connected to their grandson, Francis Hope. Now he marries actress Mae Yo. And
look at her. Oh, she's wearing it.
Well,
is she?
I'm actually not sure if this is Mae Yo or the next owner, but this kind of gives you, I think this is actually the next owner, Evelyn McLean, but it kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like now it's being worn as jewelry.
Okay.
So,
and it looks like she's got it. Is that pearls that she's wearing it with?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but now Mae Yo and Francis, maybe they didn't have all of the gambling debts that his father did, but they're still living beyond their means. They're not really the best with money. I mean, they didn't really have a good example in his father, who was obviously, he didn't get the gems left to him. He was not spending his money very well. They didn't have a very good example in the first place. But they lived beyond their means. They wanted to sell it to avoid bankruptcy, and they actually kind of petitioned the family 3 times to be able to sell it off to pay for some of this bankruptcy and debt before the family actually said, yeah, okay. Like they petitioned them the first time, no, we don't want you to do that. Petition them again, it's still a no. The 3rd time that they did, they were finally like, okay, yeah, we got to start paying off some of these debts. So it was sold out of the Hope family, but it's still known as the Hope Diamond. So then it was sold to Joseph Frankel Sons & Co. in New York City in 1901. In 1908, it was purchased by Salim Habib, a diamond collector. If you remember from that first article, he drowned in a boat collapse. That never happened.
That never happened. How much is he paying, like, at this time for this diamond? Did you find that?
Well, it didn't say really on the website, but at this point, I think it's selling for millions of dollars. Back then, it was like hundreds of thousands, but in today's money, it would be millions of dollars.
Yeah. Wow.
So he buys the diamond. He starts having financial troubles, and later there's this incorrect report of his death, that he drowned at sea. It was contributed to this myth and curse. This is when the curse is really starting to blow up, that all of these people were coming into these different troubles and deaths and financial ruins. And so the myth of the curse is really, it's getting big now.
Yeah. When the diamond didn't have anything to do with that, maybe at all.
Yeah, and I mean, throughout the years, of course, you have this, like, oh, Marie Antoinette, she's beheaded. She had this diamond in her possession and the French royal crown jewels. And, of course, the myth of the curse is always there, but now it's really starting to blow up, right? So, and he was still alive when this incorrect report of his death went through all of the headlines of these newspapers, and it was saying he drowned with 30 other passengers of this boat, and it was said that he had the Hope Diamond with him at the time, so now it's lost at sea. How tragic. You know, it's like it's like Titanic kind of.
Yeah.
So then in 1910, Cartier acquires the Hope Diamond, and in 1912 he sells it to Evelyn Walsh McLean, which is who I'm pretty sure is in this picture. Okay. Now she's the one that was looking for cursed objects, because she said that cursed things that were unlucky to other people were actually lucky to her. Okay, so he goes and he presents her this Hope diamond. Now, her and her husband had actually bought another diamond from him before, or another gem from him before, I think on their honeymoon. And so he knew that they were, big spenders. I would have a good chance of selling this to them, but she didn't like how it was set. So he was like, okay, let me come back. I'll put it in a different setting. I'll let you just borrow it for the weekend and just take it for a spin, see how you like it. Which, can you imagine?
Oh my gosh.
That would never happen now. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, right.
So he brings it back to her. It's in the setting that it is now in this picture. She loves it so much better. And she's like, okay, I'll buy it from you. So he sells it to her. She goes through a lot of other hardships. I think her son is actually the one that was killed in an automobile accident in front of their house when he was like 9 years old. Then she has all of these other financial troubles. I mean, really goes through it. So then in 1949, it's purchased by Harry Winston and put into his traveling exhibit, the Court of Jewels. So we all know that Harry Winston's like the king of diamonds, right? He's very well known for, he's Harry Winston. He's well known for this, especially because he had this traveling exhibition, which I can't even imagine that being a thing now. I didn't really read a lot into it, but you would think that would just be a very, I don't know, like if I was a jewel thief, I'd be like, yeah, it's a traveling exhibition. How highly can it be guarded? I'm going to go there first,
Yeah.
But he had all these different jewels put into this exhibition along with the Hope Diamond. And then in 1958, it was acquired by the Smithsonian. Now, after Harry Winston delivers it to the Smithsonian, so it's no longer in his possession, but he was in 2 automobile accidents. He lost his wife and his dog to early deaths, and he suffered a house fire.
Oh, wow.
Is this because of the diamond? Probably not. This was after he sold it to the Smithsonian, so I want to say no, but it's still, I don't know, it's just interesting that most people that have owned this diamond or been involved with this diamond have met some kind of early demise or financial trouble, or somebody close to them has died. I don't really know that I found one person that owned it that didn't have some kind of misfortune, but that's also just life.
It's life, yeah.
It can be argued that anybody that owns anything has a cursed object, because every single person, nobody has a perfect life. Every single person meets with some kind of misfortune as they go down the road.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if I really believe it, because I think Cartier, when he was trying to sell this Hope Diamond to Evelyn McLean, who's the one in the picture, yeah, she likes to buy cursed objects. So of course I'm going to sell her the story of, Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. He found this, and it was in the statue of this Indian god, and he took it out of the eye because it was being used as an eye, and then it was immediately cursed by this Indian god.
Yeah.
That's an easy story to sell to somebody that is already really interested in cursed objects.
And it's a story that takes off like wildfire,
Yeah. And it already has this history of all of this misfortune behind it. So it's easy to say, yeah, it's definitely cursed. But you should still buy it from me for millions of dollars.
And I get the finance thing, because if you're spending that kind of money on a diamond just to kind of keep up the Joneses, right? Just to kind of keep the status quo, you're not making no money off of it. A bank may loan you money because you have that, but you're still in debt. So you go spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on a diamond that's basically you're going to look at, you're going to have financial problems. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You can't really come back from that. And obviously, everyone that had bought it, you're not going to buy something. There was a few of them down the line that just didn't make smart financial decisions. But for the most part, they all thought, okay, I can afford this. And she was like, I'm going to turn this into a really nice necklace. I'm going to wear it all the time, and it looked great on her. Fantastic. 10 out of 10. But I am not from that world. So spending that kind of money on a diamond to me is like, I could never. much less spending this mad money on a diamond necklace and then wearing it out places.
It puts a target
what if
on you.
lose it?
Yeah.
What if you lose it? What if it falls off? What if somebody sees it and like murders you to get it? Absolutely not. I think I would be passing on that.
Yeah.
I'll go see it in a museum. I'll take
Yeah.
a picture and I'm moving on. And then I couldn't like, so the history of the diamond continues. Obviously, it's going to different museums. It's being shown in these different exhibitions, but I couldn't really find anything about the Smithsonian bursting into flame or
Yeah.
flooding and then this diamond is lost. It's just, I think it's all in the eye of the beholder. If you want to believe that it's a cursed object, yeah, that's a fun history. It's exciting to learn about and think about, but I don't know that I really think that it's
Cursed. Yeah.
myself personally. I mean, I
Right.
think anything could be cursed if you look at it through that lens, I guess.
Yeah. That makes
But
perfect sense.
the last picture that I have, it's kind of a rendering of all of the stones. So to the left, you have the 112 carat Tavernier blue. The
Now,
diamond.
let me ask you this. So that on the left, it was found kind of like that, or did they wow. Can you imagine pulling that out of the earth?
Well, and I think if you're finding a gemstone, like a raw gemstone in a mine, obviously it's not going to look like that when it first
Right.
You're going to have to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was cut down a lot, because if you're finding a really, really big stone in a mine, you're not going to want to cut it down a lot anyways, because the bigger it is, the better, obviously. But then he sells it to the French royalty. They want to cut it down to make it more reflective, because obviously that first stone, it's definitely a diamond, but it doesn't have those cuts to reflect the different angles of light.
Yeah.
So the next one is the French blue in the middle, and that one does. And it's just, you can see that it's made to be viewed. Like it's made to be put in a setting to either be worn or be viewed. It catches the light better. It's fancier. It's still pretty, I mean, it's 67 carats still. Like it's not been cut down a ton. I mean, it is quite a jump from 112 to 67, but it's almost more interesting to look at this way.
It is.
You know, and then because, you know, it's been stolen and you don't want it to be recognized, you're obviously going to have to cut it down a little bit more. So now we have on the very right is the Hope Diamond, which is 45 carats. And this is how it's stayed. And that's how it looks today.
Gosh,
I looked about the actual sizes of what you think it would actually look like. Is the one on the far right about the size of the one you guys seen in the Smithsonian? Or would it be closer to the one on the left?
The one on the right.
I don't know. I don't think that this, I think it's a lot bigger in real life. I don't think this does justice. Yeah. I don't think that this is going to do it justice. I think that it would be, I think that the original one, the Tavernier one on the left, will probably fit in your palm pretty well. And then it just gets a little bit smaller as you go. Obviously, it's not going to be anything that could fit on your fingers like a ring. It's definitely a necklace size. But I don't think that this, I think it's bigger. Yeah. I think it would probably be in real life, the Hope Diamond itself would probably be closer to the size that the Tavernier one all the way to the left is on the screen.
Oh,
and then it would just get bigger from there in real life. But no, I don't think that this would be accurate sizes of what it really is, because that seems really small to me for the Hope Diamond. But then again, I mean, that's just the top of it. It has more weight underneath, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's interesting because as I'm doing this research, I was listening to another podcast that was going over, there's so many other cursed gemstones and diamonds. And that's just so interesting to me. And it's interesting that different gemstones can be used and are interpreted in different ways. Like the one that I was listening to was about this cursed amethyst. And I was like, this is a really interesting story, but it was a really long episode about it. And I was like, well, I don't want to do an episode about this if this episode just came out of this other podcast, and I was like, well, I'll do the Hope Diamond, because this, if I'm talking about both of them, is going to be a super long episode, but it was really interesting. So if you listen to the Two Girls, One Ghost podcast, one of their most recent episodes is about this ancient cursed amethyst that was just really interesting too.
Okay.
And who knows how many other ones there are out there that are cursed stones or diamonds, or, you know.
So I guess our listeners can make up their mind about whether they think that it's really cursed or not. I tend to think, like you, Lindsay, that it's just, you know, just like.
It's so interesting. It's such an interesting story, but the logical part of my brain is like, our curse is real. Please don't curse me to prove that, but like, our curse is real, you know, like.
Exactly.
It's so interesting.
Well, and it reminds me too of King Tut, you know, when
and
Lord
I would like
Carnarvon,
to do an episode of that.
Yes, we need to do an episode.
I love that story. Like when I taught art, like elementary art, we would always do like a few Egyptian inspired projects, and we would talk all about how King Tut's tomb was discovered, and is there a curse, is there not a curse? Because how fun is that? It's just so fun to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to do an episode on that at some point.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode. Now, you said something about Bela Lugosi's mirror. He's my favorite. Well, no, I take that back. I was going to say he's my favorite Dracula, but Ryan knows who my favorite Dracula is, and he's going to be at Scarefest. No, not Edward Cullen. My favorite Dracula is Chris Sarandon. He played a vampire in the movie Fright Night, the original in the 80s. And
okay, calm down over there.
But Bela Lugosi, I have to say, that stare, I mean, he was scary without even doing anything.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do anything. He's such a babe. Look at him. The hair slicked back, the drawn-in eyebrows, the high collar. Are you kidding me? Yeah, that's definitely Dracula. But I also really like, and I don't know if this one has a lot of fans, but I really like the 90s version of Dracula that has Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder.
Oh, and Gary Oldman plays.
Gary Oldman as Dracula. I love that movie. I think it's so fun.
Yeah,
anyways,
it is.
So I don't have as much information on this one really, because a lot of the information comes from Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum, because that's where it is now.
Oh, that's where the mirror is. Okay. Lindsay, did Courtney go to that museum?
She went to that museum. She didn't really say anything about this mirror though.
Oh, okay. Well,
it might be one of those things where like it's in a separate room and you have to sign, because I know you have to sign a waiver just to view it. But anyways, so Bela Lugosi was one of the OG scary movie villains. You know what I mean? Like he was in 1931 horror film classic Dracula. He was the original Dracula. One of his most famous roles. And he was also very interested in the occult, like clairvoyance and talking to the dead. And he would actually do this thing called scrying. Have you ever heard of this?
Scrying? Mm-hmm. Is that the writing?
No.
Okay.
This scrying is when you use a medium like a crystal ball or a bowl of water or a mirror, some kind of reflective surface, to see visions or get messages from the spirit world. And he would do this a lot.
Really?
He was married and divorced a lot of times, and he used this mirror to scry and try to communicate with one of his deceased wives. It doesn't really say which one, because there's a handful. I think there's like 4 or 5 marriages and divorces in his record.
Okay.
Not judging. I mean, if you're not happy, you're not happy. But it didn't mention which wife he was trying to communicate with. And so he used this mirror to scry and try to contact one of his wives that had passed away. I didn't really get a lot of information about whether he was successful. There's really not a lot of information about when he owned the mirror. Yes, it was owned by him, but there's not a lot out there on whether he was successful with that, just that he did it. He was scrying, trying to communicate with her. But so he passes away. After he passes away, this mirror is left in his house. Now, Frank Selettri rented the house after he passed away. And the mirror was behind a curtain in Frank's bedroom. Now, in 1982, Frank was shot and killed in this room. Also, maybe tortured a little bit before he passed away. It was said to have been a mob hit. Frank Selettri himself was like a film producer type. I don't know what he produced or if they were any really popular movies, but now this is coming from an episode of Zach Bagans' Haunted Objects show where it discussed this. His niece kind of came and gave Zach the mirror because she couldn't sell it off. I don't think anybody else wanted it, and kind of said that her uncle, Frank Selettri, had been stabbed with screwdrivers in his kneecaps.
Ooh.
And then shot, and then they possibly tried to get the bullet out of him with the same screwdriver, and his throat was slit, and
Oh my gosh.
it was a whole thing. And it was all in the same room as this mirror. Now, it's kind of thought that the theory is that the portal, when Bela Lugosi was using it to scry and communicate with the other side, the portal was left open. And that the mirror is absorbing all of this evil energy from this murder as it happened. So the website that I was reading said that Lugosi's niece said that her daughter experienced this, but I kind of am curious if they got that wrong on the website and it was Frank Selettri's niece, because she's the one that brought it in to sell it to Zach. Anyways, that her daughter had looked, when she was looking into the mirror, that a hand reached out and tried to grab her and bring her into the mirror. I don't know how old her daughter is at the time, but what a story.
Yeah, what a story.
Because this portal was never closed. This guy gets horrifically murdered in the same room that this mirror is in. And all of the evil energy just goes into, because the portal's open. So where is the evil energy going to go? It's going to go into the mirror, right? And that she felt she'd been bitten on the neck. I don't know, maybe if that's just because, it's Bela Lugosi and he was Dracula, so now I have this bite mark on my neck. I don't know about that. But she also said she saw a shadow figure appear in the mirror, and that when she slept in the same room as the mirror, she had horrible nightmares and would wake up with scratches on her body. Now, Zach Bagans has the mirror in his museum now. And he said that after they acquired the mirror, it caused a flood in the basement.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, Zach. All right.
And now when you go to, if you want to look into the mirror, you have to sign this waiver that says if anything physically happens to you or emotionally, mentally happens to you, that the museum is not going to be held responsible. But I remember that, and it might have been from this episode. I will link the episode below because it's just fun and dramatic, and
He's always dramatic.
Yeah, you have these voiceovers by Zach, and he's like, "It's Bela Lugosi's mirror. After we acquired it, our basement flooded." Like, it's so, I just think it's so funny how he talks. It's so dramatic. But I remember watching an episode of this show where, the tour guide takes a group of people into the room that has the mirror in it, and I don't think the mirror is the only thing there. And this is kind of what it looks like, how it's set up in the museum. Like, it's not. It's like covered up. You can only see the bottom corner of it. There's, his cape and his hat and a picture of him as Dracula. And there's a story beneath it on this plaque. But in the episode, the tour guide brings this group of people in, and this one person goes over and they're like looking in the mirror and they're standing there, and then they pass out, and then they start acting really strangely, and they have to call this ambulance to come get them, and it's just so dramatic.
Wow.
But it makes for a good story, you know?
It does. And, I was thinking that whole time he said that he was using the mirror to try to communicate with, his deceased wife. If he stood there giving that look to the mirror, he probably scared him
He
away.
probably scared himself, yeah.
Yeah, he probably scared himself.
But I
If
don't
I
you
know.
could not
can,
get that out of my head when you were talking.
somebody pass out in front of Lindsay, she'd be like, "Are you faking? Get
Yeah.
up."
Yeah, I'd be like, all right, you can stop anytime now. Like, we get it.
That's
But then,
why when
but then after I said that, I'd be like, okay, but are you really okay? Like, can I get you some help? Like, I'm a nice person, but I am going to be a little bit skeptical at first. I will
yeah,
not lie.
that's why I couldn't believe she didn't say something like that when we were at the Trans Allegheny and that guy
Well,
passed
I
out on our
felt so
tour.
bad because his little daughter
Yeah,
was crying and his
yeah,
wife was freaking out. I'm not going to make that situation worse. And I'm
yeah.
not a nurse, so I can't help you at all at that point. Like, I'm just going to be back here minding my own business, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't know
Anyway.
if this mirror is cursed or not, but I'd probably go look in it. Would you, Ryan?
Oh, I for sure would, yeah.
I would, yeah. I mean, we'd see what happens. I'm just like, yeah, hey, we'll go check this thing out.
Yeah.
Y'all just
But
keep an eye on me later.
Yeah.
yeah, I'll just watch it real quick. But you know what? Like, if I went into the museum, if I'm going to sign a waiver that
Exactly.
says you're not going to be held responsible, that's fine. I will sign a waiver, but I'm going to need us to take off the curtain and can we raise the lights up? Because I really want to get a good look in this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if I'm signing a waiver and paying money to see it, let me look in it. Like, let me get a good lighted look in it to see what I can see in there. Because I would look in it. I would.
Okay. All right. Those were
I want to see if any hands are going to come out and grab me.
two stories that I did not know. I had
I
no.
know the Diamond's more well known. I feel like Bella Lugosi's isn't, but there's really just not a ton of information
Yeah.
out there on it also. So
Yeah.
anyways, that's me and I'm done.
All right, Ryan, what you got for us?
Well, I done some different things, and I'd kind of touch base on some things we'd cut up because I know a couple weeks ago I told a story, and there was a doll involved in things, and we was remembering the type of doll, and it was actually Robert the doll.
Mm-hmm.
So I would actually thought I would tell our listeners exactly the backstory of Robert the doll. It kind of looks, yeah, like a knockoff version of Mr. Potato Head or something, but don't curse me for saying that. But it's actually got its own horror movie made after it. Gets letters from those who fear have offended the toy because they don't want it coming after them. And I've got a story about it, how it came about, why it's haunted. So
Okay.
you never know. And it's also one of Key West's most famous haunted dolls. So I'll tell you real quick a little bit about it. Then I've got a follow up story of something personal that I've come across that I thought was haunted.
Okay.
So this is basically off the website that was ghostandgravestones.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's under the heading Robert the Doll, of course. So I'll go ahead and tell you what the write up is about it and tell you a little bit more about the doll itself. So we've all experienced that eerie feeling that someone's watching us, that an inanimate object had and actually come alive. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what people feel when they're in the presence of this doll. Okay, so like something's watching it, there's something here. So in Key West, many have not only experienced that feeling, but I also witnessed it when viewing the famous toy, Robert the doll. So just being in the very room of this doll, you can feel its presence, which is kind of crazy, right? And I'm going to go ahead and let you know this now, but you may not want to actually take advantage in visiting this place after you hit the story. But you can visit the doll at the East Martello Fort there
Okay.
in Key West, okay, because that's where it's at. So at the beginning, where the story starts of Robert the Doll, it dates all the way back to the early 1900s when a young boy named Eugene Robert Otto was given a one-of-a-kind handmade doll by a servant that worked for his parents in his home. And Eugene, who everyone called Gene, named the doll Robert and quickly became attached to his new friend. So they gave him the doll, of course, to make friends with him, something for him to play with, because they didn't have a lot to do back in the
Mhm.
1900s. They had PlayStation or iPhones or
Right.
Nintendos and all that. They played outside or played with dolls and stuff. So this is to keep the kid busy. So the home where Eugene lived, now called the Artist Home, is located, well, I was even going to tell, at 534 Eaton Street and was built between 1890 and 1898. And it was here that Eugene was given Robert the doll and where a friendship that lasted throughout his entire lifetime and beyond was forged. That's the key word, beyond.
Beyond. Okay.
So while he seemed like an ordinary cloth doll, it wasn't long before Robert was involved in a strange and somewhat terrifying events. The first hint that something was out of the ordinary was happening was one night when Gene, who was only 10 years old at the time, he woke up to find Robert the doll sitting at the end of his bed, staring at him. Now, that's a creepy looking doll. If I leave it across the room and all of a sudden it's on the edge of my bed just looking at me with those weird eyeballs, it's probably going to get a foot to the face. Just
Yeah.
putting that out there.
I will move.
Can I ask you a
I'll
question?
sell the house
Is
and move.
his like face and head made out of wood, or what is that?
Yeah, it's like hand carved. Yeah, and I know it looks
Okay.
kind of like potatoes, like sponges, kind of.
Yeah,
It
it
does.
kind of
Yeah,
does.
Yeah.
it's like a doll-like material. It's just weird looking.
Okay.
And I didn't really get into exactly, what it's specifically made out of, but I'm sure, to be lasting all this year is some kind of solid,
Mhm. Mhm.
like wood or plastic type material, that could last a while because it's over 100 years old. So moments later, his mother was wakened by his screams for help and the sounds of furniture being overturned in her son's room. Gene cried for help, begging his mother to rescue him, and when she finally was able to wrench the locked door open, so this thing locked the door. Furniture, this kid is only 10 years old, and
Yeah.
furniture's flying around, right?
Okay.
She saw poor Gene curled up in fear on his bed and his room in shambles, and Robert the doll sitting at the foot of the bed. So the doll's just like sitting there looking at the 10-year-old, nobody else in the room, and furniture and everything just floated out of the way, and she was barely able to get the door unlocked. That's crazy. That's like the first part of the story. That's how they come about. So he said Robert did it were the only words Gene could get out. And that's the same words he would later use many, many times throughout his childhood when something strange, mysterious, or destructive would happen. So the question is, did Robert do it? Nobody knows for sure why or how this child's plaything could actually wreak havoc on a child's bedroom or do anything at all, because after all, it's a toy, right? But the weird and inexplicable didn't stop at that one occurrence. Gene's parents would often hear their son upstairs talking to the doll and actually getting a response back in a totally different voice. So Gene's in his room by himself, and the doll's actually talking back, and they're hearing two separate voices in his bedroom, which is very weird.
Mm-hmm.
They reported seeing the doll speak and witnessing his expressions change, so they can even see the expressions change just like a live person. Giggling and the sightings of Robert running up the stairs or staring out the upstairs window were also reported. So they see this thing moving around, talking, giggling, having fun just like a little kid, and this is a doll.
The parents saw it too.
Yes. Yeah, it
Okay.
wasn't just a kid. The parents actually saw this.
Okay.
And at this point, like, are they gonna get rid of it? Like, are they like, okay, let's throw this thing out?
No,
No.
they probably don't know what to do. They're probably afraid to do anything with it, to be honest, because they let him keep it throughout his entire childhood.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, that's on them, honestly. Like,
Right.
I'm sorry, I'd be getting rid of that thing.
So, it keeps going. And like I said, Robert continued to live with Gene throughout his entire lifetime. And after Gene's parents died, he moved back into their home with his wife, Anne. And Gene decided that the doll needed a room of its own and placed him in the upstairs room that he had a window overlooking the street. So basically, he kept it throughout his life. He got married, and he even had its own bedroom. So it's basically he treated it like it was his own kid. It's part of the family now.
His poor wife.
I know. That's what
It's
I was
entirely right.
thinking.
So Annie, his wife, felt uneasy with Robert in the home, and although she couldn't put her finger on it, she wanted Gene to lock the doll up in the attic where he could do no harm. Gene conceded that, as one could imagine, Robert the doll was not happy with his new digs. So he got mad. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna put me in the attic? No, wait, I got something for you, right? You don't know who you're dealing with." So soon visitors to the home heard footsteps in the attic and sounds of someone pacing back and forth and devilishly giggling. So this thing's up there. Robert's up there making a plan. Neighborhood children reported seeing Robert watching them from the window in the upstairs bedroom and told
No.
of the doll actually mocking them as they walked to school. So it's up there making fun of them.
It's probably up there like flipping them off. Like,
For real,
okay,
right?
you
This
go to
doll's
school
like,
instead of-
"Oh yeah, I'll teach y'all. Lock me up here in the attic."
Yeah.
You know?
Watch this.
So when Gene heard this, he immediately went to investigate, knowing that he had locked Robert in the attic, and there was no way he can be sitting by the window of the upstairs bedroom. So he's like, "Now, Robert, come on, man, you got to be good. I put you up here. Stop causing me grief." So he's up there.
Rob.
He's gonna go talk to his buddy because he's had him his entire childhood since 10 years old.
Yeah.
Rob, we talked about this.
Right? You've got to play nice with the other kids now. You're scaring my wife. Stop. So, but to his complete shock, when he opened the door to the bedroom where Robert was sitting in the rocking chair by the window, Gene locked Robert back up in the attic several times, each discovering him again standing by the window in the same upstairs bedroom. So by now, Robert's getting out of the attic and going back to his own bedroom. He's chilling, making fun of the kids in the street, causing grief. And then whenever he knows somebody's coming to get him, he goes, "I'm going to go chill out. I'm going to rock in the chair and just relax for a minute."
What a badass doll.
Right? I mean, for real. And then, so it gets worse. So a new child to terrorize is the next section of the story throughout his life about Robert. So when Gene Otto died in 1974, and a new owner moved into the house on Eaton Street, their 10-year-old daughter was delighted to find Robert the doll in the attic. And why has she got to be 10? He was 10 when is there an age group that, he's just like, okay, they've got to be 10 years old because they got to be at least somewhat smart, but not like super smart to figure out what's going on. Right? But her delight was ended soon when she claimed that Robert was alive and the doll wanted to hurt her. So he's mad that, Gene passed away. He's like, "No, I don't want you. Leave me alone. I already have my friend." So she wants to be friends with the doll. He's not having it. He's upset that Gene's gone. So now he's just going to take it out on everybody.
Can you imagine if they buried him with the doll and then the doll shows up at the house?
Oh my gosh, that's a whole movie waiting to happen right there.
She awoke often in the middle of the night screaming in fear and told her parents that Robert had moved about in the room. So he's up in the middle of the night just moving around, just doing whatever, right? He's just like, "I'm bored. You guys are asleep. I'm locked in this stupid room. So I'm just going to move around." And it wasn't long before Robert the doll was given away. And today he lives in the East Martello Fort, where visitors from all over the world come to see him. So that's where he's been since then. So is the doll really possessed? And many believe that the origin of Robert's evil lies in the one that originally gave him to Gene Otto, the servant who worked for Gene's parents. This woman was supposed to be mistreated by her bosses, and to punish them, it is believed that she cursed the doll with voodoo and black magic. And that might explain that many mysterious and frightening experiences people have had with Robert the doll. But also, if so, wouldn't the haunting end when the owners died? No one really knows for sure, but one thing remains constant. Robert the doll continues to taunt and scare those who come to view him, especially guests to the museum who attempt to take photos.
Ooh.
Many have reported their cameras becoming inoperable when they try to take a picture of Robert, only to begin working again when they left the museum. And even though Robert the doll sits inside a glass case, it doesn't seem to stop him from inflicting fear and discomfort to museum staff and visitors. So everybody, like he's behind his glass, but he's like, "Oh, that's not going to harm me. I can do stuff. Watch this," and he like messes with people. They even report that his facial expressions changes. They hear
What?
demonic giggling, and they even seen Robert put his hand up to the glass. So people go there looking. He'll be like make faces at him. He'll be moving around. They get too close. He's like putting his hand up to the window, maybe
Oh
staring them.
gosh, that would
You
scare
know,
me to no end.
uh, and you can actually meet Robert at the East Martello Museum. Visitors are welcome to view Robert in his special case at the museum, and of course, encouraged to try and get a photo. I don't know about all that. Though most who tried have been unsuccessful. If nothing else, get a close look at Robert and watch him carefully and try to catch a glimpse of him smirking at you, moving about in his case, or watching you as you watch him.
And this is in Key West.
Yes.
Okay.
So, for those of you that would like a thrill, make sure your phone batteries are charged up, or if you got one of the old school Polaroids or whatever you want to do, go down there and see if you can catch some pictures of the doll. He likes to make fun of people, obviously, and so go down there and make a couple faces at him. Do something crazy, see if you can get a reaction out of them, or maybe not. I mean, not. I better not say that because somebody go down. Well, Ryan told me to do it.
Yeah, they told us to.
Yeah. What? So that's very interesting.
It is. I would set up a like 24-hour camera, like just watching it. They should do a live feed. They'd make a lot of money with that.
Oh, I'm sure they have.
You think so? Yeah, they should. They definitely should. I've never seen a picture of the doll until now,
Yeah.
and it is
There's some
weird.
more, and a lot of there's pictures. He's supposed to have like a little black puppy dog or something in his lap. With the dog, because that's just basically the head and chest shot. But in his lap, he's supposed to have a black dog, and he's like in a sailor's type outfit.
Yeah.
Of course, to make it more kid friendly. But in black voodoo magic, to curse the parents and stuff, and then it's kind of crazy. The doll's like, put me in the attic. I'm still going back to my room, and hey, I want outside. Oh, there's some kids down there. I'm going to start messing with them. So this thing has got like a sense of humor,
Yeah, for
starts
sure.
picking up and you look in the mirror or in his glass case, he's going to be like looking back at you, like making faces. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
So what do y'all think about that?
I completely honestly, the girl who made it, good for you, girl. If you're gonna mess around and treat her with disrespect, watch. Okay, bet. I'm gonna give your kid the worst toy in the entire world.
Yeah.
See what happens.
And voodoo is
Honestly,
something. You don't mess around with that.
No, you don't play with that. You don't want to mess around with that. So if you know somebody that can do that, you better watch your manners. You better watch how you act around that person.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I actually have a real story. It's not long or anything, but a story of something that was strange that happened when we was kids. We was real small, and my sister, she's several years younger than me and my brother, and they got her a doll, and it was one of them. Back in the day, they give you them battery operated dolls,
Yes.
and when the batteries wear down, even though when they're fully charged, it sounds like a cute little laugh, but when the batteries are about half dead, they sound like
It's like
Evil.
demonic.
spawn of Satan, right?
Yeah.
Well, she had one of those, and we always believed that, certain rooms in Mama's house was haunted and things like that in the back room, because there was never, ever any light in there unless you actually turned the light on, because the light from anywhere could not reach the center of the house. And so they always kept that doll back there because that's where they kept the toys and, some storage and stuff. And they had a couple bedrooms. So me and my brother were always sleeping back in there. We kind of got back out of the way. And she had this doll, and it was over in the corner, and like in the middle of the night, we just kept hearing this doll laugh. And it wasn't, and it was like the creepy, drained battery laugh,
Yeah.
And so it kept doing it. And so that morning, it done it again, and like woke us up. It was right after daylight. So I'm like, we're going to take the stupid batteries out of that. There's nothing touching it. This thing should not be going off. And for real, there was no batteries in that stupid doll.
Oh.
So me and my brother's like, hey, what are we doing? We like freaked out, right? And everybody else is still in the bed. So we're like, hey, look, we've seen way too many movies, which Rhonda can testify to. We're like, hey, we've got something going on here. Yeah. So we go way down in the woods and we beat that doll against a tree. We cut it up. I mean, we totally destroy that doll. There's not like one piece of that doll that you can put back together. I mean, it was worse than a jigsaw puzzle. We were like, okay, this thing is not coming back on us. Because you watch the movies, it'll like come back, chop its head off, it'll come back together. So and then we bury it. And we did not, and my sister looked for that doll forever. We did not tell her what happened to that doll until like 10 years ago.
Oh, okay. I started saying, well, she's going to know now.
Oh, she knows now, but like up to about 10 years ago, she had no clue.
She didn't know? What did she say when you told her?
She's like, are you kidding me? I wonder what happened to doll. I was like, yeah, you didn't need that doll.
I thought you were going to say that, like, when you got back home, it was like in the back again.
Oh, no. That would have totally freaked me out.
He wouldn't have recovered from that. I don't think he'd be doing this podcast.
Yeah, he would have been done back then.
That is creepy.
Yeah, that's
Did she remember it as scary? As being
No, nobody else really had any experiences from it. Yeah. It just so happened that it happened to me and my brother that night. And for real, there was no batteries. I mean, you can ask, if you ever see him around, you can ask him if he can remember it. Because we was all fairly young, but when we saw that there was actually no batteries in that doll.
I cannot imagine the look on y'all's face.
Dude, we was like, holy crap. We're like, well, what we're going to do? It's like, I don't know. It's like, look, yeah, we got to do something with this. I was like, listen. So like I said, for real, we wrapped that thing around a tree, busted it into 1,000 pieces, made sure like it was 1,000 pieces before we got, and then we buried everything way down in the woods and probably threw stuff on top of it. Yeah.
Look at those little McCoy boys knowing the right thing to do with the haunted object.
Hey, we watched them scary movies. That crazy stuff, they'll come back and get you.
Yeah, we sure did. Oh, that's creepy though. Dolls can be creepy, and there's just something about like a vintage doll. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, this doll here on the screen is creepy, but there's also something about those old dolls that they made like in the early 1900s. They're scary looking anyway. I know a lot of people are scared of dolls, scared of clowns. Everybody has their own, this is what I'm most scared of.
What's really funny though? Like, do you know how when we were growing up, Grandma would always get us, she would give us each a specific toy for Christmas?
Yes.
Tell me why mine were dolls of clowns.
Yeah, I don't know, but I thought they were really cute. Lindsay has. You still have those. There's 18 ceramic clowns that Lindsay owns. Okay.
Yeah, they're not here. They're in your basement.
Oh, they're here?
House,
okay.
At your house, yeah. Because I never have been bothered by clowns. Yeah. Like, I think the makeup is really cool. I think the whole idea is really cool. Is it my fault that John Wayne Gacy and Pennywise the Clown made them evil for everyone else? No.
No, it's not your
clowns.
fault.
People that are clowns, they've got to make money somehow. If they're good at that, then hell yeah, go for it. I don't know why that was my specific toy that she chose to gift me every Christmas. I'm not complaining. I think they're really cool, but I do think it's funny that two of people's main fears are dolls and clowns. And when I was a child, those were my toys.
Yeah.
Dolls and clowns.
Do you remember? And one of them was on a little swing, and it would swing.
Yeah, we hung it up in my room, and they were on a whole shelf.
Yeah, they were on shelf.
Growing up, we were just the whole stack, the whole crowd was there, the whole posse.
Lindsay had a blanket that my great aunt made for her. Remember that blanket? It had clowns on it. There were like 12 squares, and in each square there was a different clown.
What does that say about me that my gift were clown dolls, and Courtney's gift were snow globes, like little princess snow globes.
No, hers were music boxes.
Music boxes.
Yeah.
That's
But one
a
was
lot of
a
them
snow
were
globe.
snow globes.
Yeah.
And then Aaron's were nutcrackers.
Yeah. But just think, I guess
I got the weird one, I guess. It's okay.
in Grandma's defense, she had no idea that people were probably scared of clowns.
No.
And they weren't scary. I didn't think they were scary.
We should bring him on the show.
We should. You should. Yeah, we should find them the next time you're here. We'll get in the basement. We'll find them. And here you go. You want a creepy doll? Okay. So when Lindsay was little, these dolls were famous called My Twin dolls, and you could get a doll that looked just like you. And she had to have one.
Pictures, yeah, you sent in pictures of yourself because it was so cool.
And she had a matching outfit with this doll. Okay, and it really did look just like her.
And now what's weird is, so the company, the My Twin company, like, it's not around anymore.
Was it not?
No, but people, like, there's a different name for each face type. And you can sell them, like, on eBay for mad money now because they're not made anymore. And there are specific ones that have these, like, violet eyes. And mine did. When I got it, when I got it, like, I guess they were used for the blue eyes because I had blue eyes. But now over time they've turned purple, and you can get like a lot of money out of them, but the listings are so creepy. Like, I don't know why people want the doll forms. That's not my business, and I wouldn't necessarily sell mine because I don't know. That's not my business. I don't know what it's going to be used for, but it's like there's listings for these dolls now, trying to buy them, which I just think is so odd.
It is odd. We've got to find it. We're going to find it because it looked just like her. Anyway.
But I also kind of like want to leave them all boxed up because maybe one day, like down the road when I pass away and I have like this estate sale, some little kid is going to get out of the car with their parent and they're going to see this box full of clown dolls and this one really weird toddler-sized doll, and that's going to be the start of a horror movie for them.
Yeah, a horror
movie.
And
I love that journey.
Yeah, okay. For them. Well, we've talked about dolls and cursed objects and mirrors and
Ryan, did you have another one?
Did you have anything else, Ryan? Or
my phone had messed up and I had my stuff here, so I had to go back in and reconnect. I've got it. Yeah, I was actually going to talk about one of the most cursed object out there that is very popular. There's been movies about it. You know, there's a lot of controversy around it. You know, when we talk about Ouija boards. You know, some people say it's a hoax, that there's nothing to it. Hey, it's a kid's game. You can buy these things at Walmart, you know. But there's also a lot of stories out there about these things, you know, and I'm sure we've all know somebody that has known somebody that's used one of these. It's got something freaky happen to them.
Right.
Me personally, one of them bad boys ain't coming to my house. Right? I don't even want it unopened. Even if it's in plastic, keep it in a paper bag. It's not coming nowhere near this, right? Because I've read too many stories. I've seen too many movies. You know, I've heard things. So it's a big no for me. You know, I'm still curious. Hey, you know, I would like to use it one time. And in the back of me is like, yeah, that's how this stuff starts.
Yeah.
Right. And I know I'm susceptible to that stuff. And I know those things, you know, attraction draws attraction. I'm just like, oh no, it'd be like that neon sign. I hop on one of them bad boys. It's like, oh, you know, so I've heard different stories. But I've got a story about these, you know, and there's been from generations down to generations, you know, some say they've been cursed, you know, it's a way to talk to the dead. A lot of people say you can communicate with family members. Some people say it's not family members at all, that it's actually demons. Who really knows, you know, who you're talking to. But I do have a neat story about a Ouija board, and this is kind of typical of, you know, the story that happens. But I'll go ahead and jump into this, and this is actually on BuzzFeed.com, you know, and it's about scary Ouija boards. So this is basically somebody telling a story about when they was a teenager. So it's not me, but my dad. When my sister and I were teenagers, we wanted to get one. And our mom said yes. And when she mentioned it to my dad, he flipped out and said, "No way, absolutely not. One of those things is never coming in my house." Right? He put his foot down. He's like, "No, y'all crazy. Y'all don't know." So my mom never heard him so upset and asked him what the issue was. At first, he refused to say anything and said the conversation was over. So obviously, that's a big red flag. Something's happened to him before. So what does that do? Obviously, it's going to make people curious and stuff, right? If they're like, oh, wonder what happened to him. So he refused to say anything and said the conversation was over. After a few weeks later, he told mom his story. So when he was younger, he had a friend whose older sister and boyfriend used one. The boyfriend had asked if he would be rich and the typical questions, and the boy's like, yes. 2 years later, the guy was in a horrific car accident and ended up becoming paralyzed from the neck down. The accident was because of an issue with the car, and the family suggested they sued the manufacturer. The guy was awarded millions, so he was rich but confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life.
Oh.
Right. So, and when my dad and everyone else heard about it, all they could think of was the encounter with the border a few years earlier. So that's kind of like, hey, if you make a deal with the devil, or if you know anything, there's always going to be consequences, right? And then that's by a guy named Sailor Butts. And another story was like, and he's a reader by the name of Salminia, and he doesn't really know how much he actually believes it, but he had a experience, and it's like, okay, did that really happen? So his friend and him was using one in college, and the board started spelling my boyfriend's name, and then it started doing gibberish. And it started doing over and over again, and then his name, and then again gibberish. And we decided to write down what it was spelled out and asked my boyfriend about it. And when it showed him, he grew concerned and then left us. And we found out later and he called home and discovered that his grandmother had died that day, and the board was spelling a message to him phonetically in another language from her. So his family spoke a different language, and his friends did not understand. And it was a message that he knew was something that only him and his grandmother would know.
In that language.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and like I said, there was one that I was trying to find it so we could connect the link on here, and if I can find it later, I will share it. But there was a group of teenagers using a Ouija board, and you can find this on YouTube, and I'll try to find the link. I looked all day for it, and I couldn't find it. I've searched actually many times for this one because I thought it was so interesting, but I only found it one time. It was by accident. So it was a group of teenagers, they've used the Ouija board several times. And then there was a haunted tunnel near where they lived. So they decided they wanted to go use this Ouija board in this tunnel. So they're down there using it, and they're in this big darkest part of the tunnel, way down in there, and it's pitch black, and they've got their candles and a couple flashlights, and they're using it. And then there's a saying that if you look through the glass in the middle of a planchette, that you actually get to see into the other dimension, like where the spirits and demons are, and you actually get to see what they look like. So he's sitting there, and then something told him to look through the planchette, through the Ouija board, and then he went ahead and looked through it. And it's really cool because the acting in the video and stuff is really amazing because it's it's not really acting. They was videotaping while they was doing it, but it looks so real because when he looked through the planchette and he actually looked around and his eyes focused on something, the look of sheer terror, and you can see the life leave him, his face like white as a ghost, and all he says, "Guys, we need to leave." And they're like, "What do you see?" He's like, "No, we need to leave. Say bye. We gotta go." And just the look of terror and his expression and the way his voice came across, that part of the video was like, holy crap, this dude just seriously saw something. And I'm really going to try and find that video because if you can watch it, you'll see what I'm saying. And even talking about it right now, I just got goosebumps because whatever it was, when you talk about stuff like this, sometimes, you just get these certain feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But to
Yeah.
see his expression and to see how he acted or that, and that's what I was trying to bring up earlier
Yeah.
today. I was kind of looked through it a little bit here. And like I said, I had a couple other things. My phone's kind of messing up, but I will add it onto the socials this week,
Cool.
just as like some add-ons.
I wonder if they took it down. You know how sometimes.
Yeah. But that was like one of the coolest Ouija boards. I mean, and you get some about like the Zozo demon that's supposed to be the Ouija board spirit that
Yeah.
is attached and things like that, and you can do a whole episode basically on it itself because it's not
Yeah.
necessarily the Ouija board, it's actually a demon,
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't know if I should do something on the Ouija board Zozo spirit or whether the Ouija board itself
Right.
because there's a lot of spirits that come through with that. And there are a couple rules, right? So if you ever play the Ouija board, never do it in a graveyard, right? Never play alone. Well, I don't say play because I don't think there's something to play with, but never use them alone.
Yeah.
And always, always, no matter what, always say goodbye. Because if you don't, I do feel that there is some sort of opening to this. There's a portal. Always say goodbye. Always kind of understand what you're dealing with and make sure you always have a friend around in case something crazy happens.
Right. Yeah. I feel like it's risky because if you believe in this, if you believe there's a spiritual realm, um, this is one of the ways that people open that door and sometimes don't shut it.
Right.
The wild thing about this is toy makers, when I was a little girl, this was like a board game. You could buy it. It was on the shelf of any toy store, and they promoted it like, just a fun toy. And I think
It's a game of life.
yeah, just like a regular board game, and yeah, I'm like you, Ryan. I've seen too many movies and heard too many true life stories to be messing with a Ouija board.
And, to kind of go back into the backstory, Ouija boards kind of go all the way back to like 1100 AD, back in China,
Mm-hmm.
and they're actually called the Fuji planchette writing, which is basically like how they do it in today, which is basically a form of necromancy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how they're created. And it was forbidden by the King Dynasty because of some of the things that was going on. So this thing's been around a long time. So,
And it was made with the express purpose of communicating with
yeah,
the
with
dead.
spirits and dead, things like that. Special rituals, uh, you know, had to be special supervisions around, because they want to make sure it's done
Mm-hmm.
properly. And it was actually communicating with the dead, and mediums use it a lot, psychics, things like
Yes.
that. They use agents. I mean, a lot of people use it for business and stuff. So,
Yeah.
but people make it as a parlor game. There's some people created like Charles Kennard of Kennard Novelty Company. He claimed to have been at the board with his business partner Elijah Bond, who patented it with help from his sister-in-law, who actually herself was a spiritualist and medium, Helen Peters Nosworthy. So there's been a lot of people say that they've actually patented and created it, but in reality, the ideal of it was created back in like
Mm-hmm.
1100 AD.
Yeah.
The way you see it now, it's kind of made as a novelty and things like that. And I'm sure it looked way different back in the day, but it still has the same effect. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
open some sort of door or a portal, and depending on just how susceptible you are to these things, is really going to depend,
Right.
on what's coming through. So it's kind of crazy.
And we have a picture on the screen of a Ouija board, but it's not showing the planchette. Do you have another picture, Lindsay? of it. Okay.
And we can add some more stuff, and like I said, I plan on adding some more to social media because
Sure.
I said some of these stories are good, and there's so much to go to them. So I want to add a little bit more to keep the interest going because you're like, hey, that's cool. Because and go in and do a deep dive. If you have any more information on this stuff, just kind of let us know. If you've got a great Ouija board story or communication with anything, whether it be a Ouija board, mirrors, stuff like that, we'd love to hear it also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And okay, so I've got just a few short little things. I'm going to read one story that I found online on Reddit that this guy posted, and his username on there is Drew Garr, Garr. And he wrote, and this is more about going back to the cursed objects. And he said, this might sound very cliche, but about 10 years or so ago, my family and I brought back small vases. We were told the vases were over 400 years old from Machu Picchu. The vases were made from mud and had a face carved on them. We were given them by a family friend who said he wanted to give us something special for visiting Peru. He claimed he bought them from a local who lived in the Pisco region of Peru, where Machu Picchu is located. So we brought it back home to Canada, and pretty much from week one, a horrible streak of bad luck and accidents began to happen to our family. My mom came down with cataracts at a very young age. My father lost both his jobs. My brother and I were both constantly sick, and my little sister would start screaming randomly. Pretty much on the verge of being homeless, we were looking for things to sell, and we came across these vases. We didn't know if we could even sell them and for how much. So, to get an idea of their value, we called one of my dad's friends in Peru who had worked in a museum there. After a bit of back and forth, he told my dad that these type of items are not meant to leave their home soil and are not worth more than a few bucks. He said these items are probably cursed, and to lift the curse, now listen to this, we prick our fingers and smear a little bit of blood on each one of the vases and send them back. Now, of course, we were skeptical and thought that they were probably worth something. We assumed the guy wanted them so he could sell them. I mean, a blood sacrifice? That's ridiculous, right? Fast forward 2 days. My mother and father get into a pretty nasty car accident. They were okay, but they both needed to be off work for a few weeks. After that, they decided that maybe we should send them back and do the blood thing. We sent them back the next week, and after that, things got noticeably better. My father found a very good job, as did my mom. We found a really good place to live with a very low rent and overall better health. Now, it could be just coincidence, but what do you guys think is the last sentence that this Redditor posted? So, before I go into two stories that kind of debunk cursed objects, I want to talk about something called a dybbuk box. Have you all heard of these things? All right, let me tell you. Okay, you've heard of it? Okay, so Lindsay brought this picture up. And if you notice on the box, on the outside of this wooden box, there's carvings. And this is probably in Yiddish, Hebrew, because I had no idea that these things were tied to Jewish mythology. So first place I went, Wikipedia, okay? Because I just wanted to, kind of learn the general idea of what these things were. And Wikipedia said, in Jewish mythology, a dybbuk, which is a Yiddish word that comes from a Hebrew verb meaning to adhere or to cling to, is a malicious possessing spirit believed to be the dislocated soul of a dead person. So that's what they call a dybbuk, right? It supposedly leaves the host body once it has accomplished its goal. Sometimes it has to be exorcised. So then I went to the website jewishvirtuallibrary.org, and it went into a little more detail. And so in this particular picture, just imagine Imagine the Jewish folklore and popular belief that says an evil spirit which enters into a living person, cleaves to that person's soul, can cause mental illness, talk through the person's mouth, and represent a separate and alien personality called a dybbuk. Okay? So this particular image on the screen is from. I'll send Lindsay the link so she can put all these links in the show notes. Now, here's a little bit more history about this Jewish folklore. So they say that if you purchase one of these boxes, it can bring a tidal wave of bad luck. Because they are haunted by the actual dybbuk or the spirit that somehow gets trapped in this box when it leaves like the body. Like say a Jewish rabbi performs an exorcism, right? And then they get the dybbuk out of the person, and then it is trapped in this box. So authentic dybbuk boxes will usually come with some sort of backstory and certified documents, such as papers signed by a rabbi that state, under all circumstances, do not open. So where did the legend start, and how in the world did a man in California get his hands on one? Because this is the most popular story of a dybbuk box. And it says a dybbuk, or disembodied human spirit, that because of former sins wanders restlessly until it finds a haven in the body of a living person. That belief in such spirits was prevalent in the 16th century and even earlier in Eastern Europe. But the actual origin is an adaptation of the Hebrew meaning. And we talked about that meaning to cling or to adhere to. So you've got this deceased, disembodied, malcontent spirit who clings to a living person. And the phenomenon of being overcome by an otherworldly spirit has a long history in Judaism. Okay? That was my dog running in here. Sorry.
I can hear a little.
You can hear little feet. In the book of Samuel in the Old Testament, David rids King Saul of a spirit of melancholy, is what it's called, from God. And David plays his harp. And so the evil spirit would leave King Saul when David played the harp, right? So they say that in ancient, in the earlier Hebrew religions, and in the Kabbalah, also it talks about these kinds of spirits. Often individuals suffering from nervous or mental disorders were taken to a miracle-working rabbi who alone, it was believed, could expel the harmful dybbuk through a religious rite of exorcism. There was a mystic named Isaac Luria, and he's the one who laid the grounds for Jewish belief in a dybbuk with his doctrine of transmigration of souls, which just means he saw a means where souls could continue their task of self-perfecting. And his disciples went one step further with the notion of possession. So anyway, let's talk about the eBay dybbuk box. And Lindsay, if you want to bring up the next picture, I don't believe the next picture is the eBay dybbuk box, but just this is a creepy picture I got from a source we'll share in the show notes. But here's the story. A dybbuk box appeared in 2003 when antique store owner Kevin Manis bought a vintage wine box from a 103-year-old Holocaust survivor on eBay. After a strange string of unexplained hauntings, recurring nightmares, bruises, weird smells, the box found its way back onto eBay and landed in the hands of a man named Jason Haxton. He too felt the wrath of the box and ended up burying it somewhere in Missouri, but not before pulling it out of the ground to appear on the television show Ghost Adventures. Okay? So this is what Haxton said. about the box. He said, "The day it arrived, I put my hands on it and it almost felt like the thing collapsed into a liquid state. I felt like a knife was coming into me. I was paralyzed in pain. When I went to bed, I had terrible dreams of a hag that seemed to come with the box." Now, Haxton said he first heard about this box from a colleague whose roommate had listed it for sale after a string of terrifying events had happened to them. The box is said to have come from an Oregon estate sale of the Holocaust survivor we mentioned earlier. And the person who bought the box at the estate sale was told the box was to always stay shut and sit in a place that was out of reach. It was never, ever to be opened. Well, Haxton had paid $280 for the box. And of course, he opened it. And when he opened it, inside was a goblet, 2 locks of hair tied with string, pennies from the 1920s, a dried rosebud, a cast iron candlestick holder, and a granite statue engraved with Hebrew letters. He didn't know what they said. Haxton said he didn't believe the stories associated with the box and didn't have any worries when opening it. But after he became very ill, and this is what he called his tidal wave of bad luck. He stated that all of his issues vanished when he followed a rabbi's advice to place the box in a gold-lined wooden container to negate whatever entity was inside it. He now keeps the cabinet inside a military-grade case, which he has buried. Thousands of folks have offered to buy the box for any price, but Haxton states it's unethical for him to sell it. He said he isn't worried by the box if the box resurfaces, but believes that the dybbuk's unfinished business may be finally finished. In fact, Haxton now believes that the dybbuk box's energy has reversed, so much so that he calls it his own personal fountain of youth and states that his vitals are better now than when he was 40 years old, and he attributes his enhanced feeling to the haunted heirloom. Which, like, totally did a 180 after he buried it, right? So pull the next picture up. Now, I checked this out. You can go on Amazon. You can go on eBay. Boxes are in online auction marketplaces. You can get them for as low as $9 and as high as $1,000. Okay, but most of these boxes are actually fake, just made to be creepy looking so that somebody can make some money off of them, right? Because there are always people like in your story, Lindsay, who are looking to buy so-called cursed or haunted objects. But that's not to say there aren't a few real ones out there. Would you take the risk of buying one? No. I don't know.
Like, I have bills. Like, I have more important things I want to spend my money on than a possible demon in a box. Like, I'm so good.
Yeah.
I would. I don't know if that's a kind of an interesting question. If I had a place to put it that was, because you don't think about yourself and your family, right? Because you don't want your family to be involved. You know, if I had like somewhere I could put it, like in a room with some cameras and stuff, and it wouldn't affect anybody else, I'd be curious to see what it would do. But I would never bring anything on here, you know, to affect the family or anybody that might come to the house, because I don't think that would be fair. You know, I personally don't want to be involved in it much, but if I would like to bring, you know, if I had like an extra room or somewhere where I can lock it away, you know, just to kind of see what's up, I would be curious in doing that. But bringing in the house with other people, no, it doesn't sound good.
And for me, the whole thing is, okay, yes, they believed in evil spirits and, you know, things like that. That is throughout history and just about every culture. But it almost sounds like somebody took that belief and they paired it with the belief of, you know, like a genie in a lamp. Genie's trapped in a lamp, or a jinn. That's what they call them. And jinns were evil, supposedly evil spirits. And so it's just like this whole hodgepodge of history that people kind of combine. And now they're saying, oh, yeah, well, you can trap a spirit in a box, or, Ghostbusters, the whole premise there. Um, so I don't know that I necessarily believe that a spirit could be contained in a box. But anyway, that I thought that was interesting because of how it ties back to the Jewish culture and all of that. But there's dybbuk boxes have been in movies, and there's two or three movies I can think of. I think I watched actually one of them a while back that had a box like this in it, and it arrived at someone's home, and they didn't know what it was. And once they took it into their house, weird things started happening and stuff. So it's just it's a movie waiting to happen. Somebody needs to.
Yeah, I think that this whole story was kind of made into a movie, and I think it's called The Possession.
Oh, maybe.
Remember they find it at a yard sale, and the dad gets
yes.
it, and then when they take it home, the daughter starts acting weird, and she like looks in the mirror, and she's like feels something weird in her throat, and so she opens her mouth really wide, and you see this hand come up from the back.
Oh yes,
remember that? I will never forget that as long as I live.
Oh, yeah. I don't like it. I don't like it.
That one's a weird one. A really, really weird one.
Mm-hmm. But as with anything that's on sale, that's for sale online, don't believe everything you read or hear, and don't spend your hard-earned money on.
Save your money.
Yeah, something that
unless that's a passion and that's something that you. Really
I mean, if you have the money and you want to buy, supposedly, if you want to collect creepy clown dolls but I thought I would leave us on a light note. Okay, so I found these two stories that I just loved, and it goes to show you how sometimes you think one thing, but really there's a whole logical explanation for it. Okay, so it was on Reddit too, and the username was Oddest Johnny, which I love that username. And he said, when I was a kid in the 1980s, I had a remote control Spider-Man car. It was my pride and joy, but my parents destroyed it because they believed it was haunted. It had a speaker on it to produce the engine noise, but it started to speak strange, deep voices in the middle of the night. Well, weeks later, after his parents destroyed it, they found out it had been picking up radio chatter from a nearby CB radio tower. Can you imagine how silly they felt?
If they destroyed it, how did they figure that out?
I don't know. He doesn't say.
Because if it's a toy, it doesn't have a kind of a broadcast. It doesn't pick up frequencies, right? It's a remote control toy. It has a speaker that runs off batteries.
I don't know.
It was in the 80s. And all those electronics and kind of.
Oh, yeah. Like the doll. I get it.
Ron's debunking the debunker. I love it. Okay. Now listen, this is a good one too. And the username is Strength Dense. Okay, it's the username. It says, when I worked in a nursery, okay? Working in the baby unit, this is nurse, we had a baby monitor so that we could listen to the children when they had their sleeps throughout the day. Okay, I think baby monitors are creepy anyway.
So creepy.
So long story short, one day we had stayed late for a meeting, and the baby monitor began emitting a young boy singing happy birthday. The nursery building itself was an old Victorian house and was pretty creepy at night without children in it. So as you can imagine, we were freaking out a little bit. Okay, a lot. We talked about it for days to anyone who would listen. We were trying to figure out who this little boy could be. Like, who could be the ghost of, So it must have been a week later, a couple of us were talking to one of the parents about it when she started to giggle. She happened to live 5 doors away from the house where the nursery was, and it was her little boy singing to his dad. So the baby monitor signals must have crossed at just the right time when the little boy was singing to his dad 5 houses away, and they heard it and thought it was coming from the nursery. So I thought those were two that were kind of, it kind of shows you that sometimes you think the worst or you think the scariest thing is the truth, but it's really not. So, Ryan, I don't know. That doesn't explain the doll story that you had.
That was straight up for real. Like I said,
Yeah.
there was no batteries in it, and yeah, there was no putting that doll back together. It was worse than Dumpty Dumpty. I'm telling you, it was in a gazillion pieces. We buried it in different spots. It was not all buried together.
It wasn't coming back.
Yeah, we buried some here and some over there and some way over there. And I was like, yeah.
Now, I know there's there's probably a lot of listeners who have heard stories or have their own stories about haunted objects or weird curses or whatever. I don't mess around with curses so much because I do think there can be something to that. There's a lot of dark magic, and dark spirits. So I don't, particularly mess around with that or Ouija boards or haunted objects or what have you. But a lot of times I'm real skeptical about it too.
I read a book.
I'm kind of half and half.
I read a book once when I was in the Army, and it was actually the original book that the Exorcist that the movie was based on, and it was the actual real book that the story's made on, right?
Yeah.
And I read the book, and I was in my barracks room by myself. The very instant, I'm talking split second that I finished that book, I closed it up and set it on my desk. The light went out of my room. Ooh. So I'm like, okay, that's weird because the way the barracks set up and the breaker is, if you turn off one side, that entire hall will turn off, right? Same with the other side. I go down there and check the breaker. So I come back, I look, I'm like flipping the breaker and stuff. So I go over and look, and I picked it up. I'm like, so I look at the book and I look back over the thing, and I see the light switch turn off again. So now I'm starting knocking on doors, and mine was the only room that turned off. And then, like 2 days later, I'm up there on, I'm downstairs. My roommate comes down. He goes, "Hey, was you just upstairs?" I was like, "No, why?" He goes, "Well, I was up there. I was on lunch. I was up there just resting. I turned the TV and stuff off because I was listening to the radio." He goes, "I come down. I forgot my hat." He goes, "So I go up to the room to get my hat." And he said the TV and the radio were on, and I had just turned it off 2 minutes earlier when I come out the door. So we had some really creepy stuff happen after I read that book. It was just a book, right? Yeah. And I was like, that's weird.
Yeah. So, you do wonder if it kind of opens it up to something. I don't know.
I got rid of the book. So.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, I got rid of the book.
We're going to have to find those clown dolls, Lindsay, and bring them on and show them. Some of them,
show and tell.
Show and tell. Love show and tell. Bring your haunted objects or your creepy objects. You know what? If listeners and viewers have, haunted objects or something that they think is cursed, we would love to see pictures. If you have pictures, just email them to us. We can share them if you'd like, or you can comment on our socials. There's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of thought to be put into stuff like this, like whether you believe it or not. I guess if I don't have a personal experience with something, I tend not to believe it. But that doesn't mean I'm going to go out and just like start buying up haunted objects on eBay and Amazon, whatever. I don't know.
Like as far as curses go, it's hard to say what I believe, but I also have enough respect for that sort of thing that I'm not gonna mess around with it. Yeah. Like as far as voodoo and curses and stuff go, like I have enough respect for it that I'm gonna mind my own business. Yes. If that's your thing, that's great. Love that journey for you, but I'm not somebody that would ever want to be cursed or curse somebody else. So if that's a thing out in the universe, that's fine. But I'm gonna stay in my lane on that. I think,
Healthy distance,
Yeah,
healthy
I'm gonna
distance.
keep my distance.
I think that's pretty much where I land. How about you, Ryan? Same.
Same. Like I said, now that you guys thinking, I'm trying to figure out how to get Robert the doll and Annabelle hooked up in the same room. I want to see one
are
here,
they
one here.
Yeah. I
That'd
want
be
a
cool.
camera. I want a live feed. Well, I guess in Zach's museum, he can't give a live feed because then he wouldn't make money unless he made you pay to watch the live feed, which I can't believe he hasn't thought of yet.
He might be getting it hooked up right now as we
He
speak.
could be. I don't know. But the Warrens, they had all that stuff locked away and in their home in a special place, and they really truly believed that they were keeping other people safe from those things. And I don't know. Maybe spirits can be attached to certain objects, but I ain't messing with it. Like Lindsay, I'm keeping my healthy distance. And listeners, we hope you do too. We hope you're smart out there. Stay spooky, but keep it light. Right?
Keep it just lightly spooky.
Yeah, lightly spooky.
But if you do want to curse somebody or have any experiences with curses and you want to tell us about it, you can always email us at sirensofthesupernatural@gmail.com and tell us how it goes.
Yeah, Ron's pointing down to the bottom. There you go. And we're on the socials. We're on the socials, and we're making a lot of friends on the socials. A lot of people are following, and so it's just amazing to me that there's so much interest in the paranormal. There have to be hundreds and hundreds of paranormal podcasters out there, and we love to have you on our show. If you're out there and you listen to us, we love to have you as a guest on our show. We're peers, we're colleagues. Get everybody in on it. We'd love to come on your show if you are interested in having us, and hearing about how we got started and all this. Just contact us on our socials, or like Lindsay said, at sirensofthesupernatural@gmail.com. And I guess we've kept you all for 2 hours now. So this is our longest episode ever, and I thought it was going to be a short one.
I did too.
We say that every week. Every week it's like, oh, this is going to be quick. We'll yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of people out there that like long podcasts, but if we find that they don't, we'll start breaking them up into 2 parts, two sessions, like you said. Anyway,
or, you could just pause it and come back later.
Yeah, exactly. A long drive, long plane ride, whatever. Download us, take us with you. So on that note, we're going to let you go, and I hope everyone, all our listeners and viewers, and Ryan and Lindsay, have a good, wonderful weekend, and we will be back next week with you. Who knows what we'll be talking about then? We don't, but we will by then.
Like a couple days before.
Yeah, we will by then, and we will say goodbye. And as always, we leave you with stay spooky. Bye.
Yeah.